So yes, unfortunately guys, we are doing this once again, I guess. I feel like it's kind of like a villain arc in an anime, and I know that's kind of childish to like compare the two, but I always feel like, because like there's always that little moment of peace that we get in between each villain or enemy arc, right? And there's obviously the enemy that you have to deal with is big and bad, but then it like just calms down for a minute. You get that relatively calm peace for a while, and then something else eventually pops up, and then you have to deal with it, right? I feel like that's what's been going on lately with the Friday Night Funkin community. Now, one thing I will say is, I've talked about this before, that it's not just the Friday Night Funkin community. I see a lot of people talking about this, like, oh, the Friday Night Funkin community is going downhill, this and that, and this and that. And while I'm not trying to deny that necessarily, because you know what, there are a lot of things wrong with the community. I'm not going to be here and sitting and say there aren't. But it's just unfortunate that a lot of people think it's just this community. It happens to every big community, unfortunately, because it brings out the best and the worst of people. That's what all communities do. And the bigger community gets, the more diverse of stuff that you're gonna get. And it's unfortunate because you tend to only hear the negative side of things because of crap like this, and because it needs to be talked about, it needs to be shared. Otherwise, if I did not think this needed to be shared, if I did not want this to be shared, I would not be saying anything, right? But it's unfortunate, it does. But just remember, at the end of the day, folks, there is good in the community. And I just wanted to start off with something a little bit positive and not doom and gloom, because I feel like these videos typically start off that way. So just know, hey, it's not always bad in the community, but it is unfortunate that we do get to see just how bad it can get, sadly. So today I'm going to be talking to y'all about Shannon Sunday. Now, the thing is, I wasn't going to be talking about this at all. I've actually been sitting on talking about this for a while, but there were a few people who told me about this and were like, hey, aren't you going to talk about this and this and that? And again, I wasn't too sure, because I was just like, dude, I'm kind of done. I just don't want to go through something like this again. But there's two main reasons why I decided to talk about this. Maybe kind of three, but mainly two. And one of them being, I am in this document that I will be talking about today. So there's a whole like expose about what Shannon Sunday did, all the allegations against him and whatnot. And I am actually in this document at the end if you look at me. So I want to make it very clear in this video that I have had no connections with Shannon Sunday prior. I did not know them at all. I did not know... I mean, I knew who they were once I looked up their YouTube videos, because I've seen them before, but I had no idea who they were beyond that. You know what I'm saying? I had no personal contact with them, right? I was put into a group chat, and I learned more about the Shannon Sunday character that day of. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, holy crap. Okay, that's a lot to take in. And so that's why you see me in the document. It's not because I knew about Shannon Sunday. It's because I was put into a group chat, in which I'm not saying it's bad. I'm glad that I was able to learn about this early on. But yeah, so I learned about it there, and then I felt weird not talking about it, I guess, because I talked about the Kodomodachi situation, and I feel like I would be hypocritical if I did not talk about this situation too, because I feel like this one's actually worse, unfortunately. And again, I guess kind of like a third reason too is there was also someone that I personally kind of knew that was affected by this. He was a younger gentleman. I'm not going to get into obviously the specifics, but that's also another reason why I wanted to bring this video to light, because I have some new information, unfortunately, about Shannon Sunday that just made this worse and ickier. So first of all, let's go ahead and just talk about who Shannon Sunday is real quick, and then get into what's going on with all this. So I'm going to be following along mainly with the document, and again, big shout outs to the document creator. They go by the name of Pico. They did great on this, you know, big props to them, because this is what a lot of, I feel like, the content creators are using. So hey, big shout outs to you, Pico. Thank you for putting this together. We definitely appreciate you. You know, you were essentially the first one to really call out Shannon Sunday and to really bring this to the spotlight of content creators. So again, thank you for that. But if you don't know who Shannon Sunday is, he is a Friday Night Funkin creator with almost 300,000 subscribers, and their videos are pretty popular. You know, it's almost in the same light of really and truly a bit of the Kodomodachi situation. I would still argue that the Shannon Sunday one is worse, and I'll get into why. but it's really in a very similar light because both of them were animators and stuff like that. And so Shannon over here, I've actually seen some of their videos. I even like some of their videos. Go figure it. Now I'm gonna have to go and like them because I'm not gonna be supporting a pedophile. So here's the thing, and again, this is all alleged, by the way. Even what I just said about being a pedophile, you know, I gotta clear all my bases and all that. All this is alleged, but this can be backed up by, you know, evidence and stuff like that. Apparently, allegedly, you know. So again, I'm not saying this out of my own, like, I know this 100% for a fact, but I am telling you what I do know about the news. So do not think that I'm going to be stating that anything is 100% true, but let me go ahead and just tell you what's going on. So with Shannon, basically what they were doing is they were talking with a 13-year-old, right? And at the time, they were 17 years old. So it gets a little bit trickier at that point because you're like, okay, you know, you can make the argument where they were minor and stuff like that, but it's still gross because at the end of the day, I mean, like in Texas, you're still an adult, right? And to be trying to go after a 13-year-old, again, it's like the same situation of how I feel about seniors dating freshmen or something like that. And even at that, usually freshmen are like 14 typically, barely 13 going into freshman year, but still, you know, it's gross, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this up more is because what they were doing with a minor, I feel like was worse than Kodomodachi because they were very, very sexual with this 13-year-old, okay? They were very explicit, and they even sent like pornographic and NSFW images to another minor who was actually 12 years old. So there's a lot that's been going down with that, and the main point of this all is that if you just remember anything from this video, just know that Shannon has affected multiple minors, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 15-year-old from my knowledge. We will get into the 15-year-old a little bit later. But there are accounts where you can see the screenshots of what they were doing. And Pico even talks about like, hey, even though that they weren't 18, there was still a power imbalance. You know, again, whenever you're a YouTuber, there's always that power imbalance that you're going to have, unfortunately, with your viewers, right? And so you have to be more proactive, especially with your younger ones. You know, I started my channel when I was 17 too, and God forbid if I ever did something like that too with a 13-year-old, you know, because you would definitely get, you know, exposed for something like that, and rightfully so, because you should not be with a 13-year-old, in my opinion. I mean, I know they were like, oh, but it's like 5 years apart, and they actually made that excuse, but no, because you're very close to being an adult too, right? And the way that you were talking with them, it just feels like that there's something wrong there, you know? And I'll get into what I mean by how they were talking to them in just a moment. I also do want to know, because Pico mentioned this as well, that it is evident that they might have gone through abuse physically from their family, and you can even see that in an animation that they've created. But again, like I've said 1,000 times over, and I will say 1,000 times again, trauma does not mean that you can just do whatever you want. Yes, it is horrible, it is sucky, and I even said this in my screenshots if you look down below, or maybe I should show it. Yes, it is sucky, but still, it's just like, you can't use that as an excuse, you know. And I do want to mention, because I am popping up the screenshot of where I said that, yes, I was actually in a group chat, which was very interesting, with Kodomodachi in there, because as y'all know, I mentioned this in the last video I made about them. Puppet is Kodomodachi, so it was weird, not gonna lie, but I wasn't there to try and I'm not here to be antagonizing people at the end of the day, even though I did feel very weird about it. But I was just like, okay, let me hear about who this Shannon Sunday person is, and whether y'all can trust Puppet or not. I totally understand if you don't, but just know that I was put in the group chat. They were in there, so I did want to make that clear. I don't want to like beat around the bush. So one thing to note is, as you can see here, this is where Shannon was sending the NSFW to the 12-year-old, and again, I know it's Rule 34, and people are going to make the argument, well, it's, you know, it's not real pornography, it's not real people. It's still weird though. I mean, you shouldn't have to expose a minor to that, not a 12-year-old especially. Like, you should not be showing any kind of porn whatsoever. It's weird. There's no reason to be doing that. And Shannon even admits like, oh, well, you know, it basically from how it was kind of saying, basically from how Shannon put it was like, oh, Noise, I'm like 5 years older than you. Kind of like, it's not that bad. See, because we're not, you know, it's not that big of an age gap. See, the thing is, people, the reason why stuff like age gaps here are worse, because for some reason people like to make this like, I don't know, correlation between the two, but it's not true. That like, oh, well, your parents probably have the same age difference, you know, one could be 35, one could be 40, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's different though. Both are mature adults, right? Like, as long as pretty much you're over the age of 18, now we can talk about like other stuff and all that, but generally with the idea, if you're over the age of 18, you're at least an adult at that point, and it can still get weird. I still even think it's weird, you know, if someone's dating like a 25-year-old and they're 18, a little bit iffy there, buddy. Starting to get iffy there, but you know what? They're adults at the end of the day. There's a difference between that, and there's a difference with Shannon too, because in Texas, like for me, for instance, an adult is 17, right? And I know where Shannon lives, their laws are a little bit different, and it's a little bit weird, not gonna lie, because they live in the Philippines where the age limit like for consent and all that is 12, and that still rubs me the wrong way. And I know people are gonna be like, oh, you're just pushing your Western ideologies and pushing your American ideologies. It's weird though. Come on, guys, let's be rational here, because a 12-year-old who's not even a teenager, mind you, they don't even have the freaking teen in the name of their age, okay? I don't think that they can be making rational decisions like that when it comes to sexual relationships and stuff like that. And it's also weird when you think about it, because Shannon brings up the fact that they did do sexual stuff with the 13-year-old that they were dating. They even were doing this weird little bit where they said they were sleeping with them platonically. I don't think you can sleep with someone platonically like that, and especially after they broke up. So what this tells me about Shannon is Shannon's very obsessive with this minor that they were talking to, and that they're in this weird state of like, oh, I need them, and it's becoming obsessive to the point where it's concerning, right? This is probably actually the biggest part of the piece in all this. If you look at the screenshot here, you'll see that someone is talking about like, oh, Shannon was saying that they missed her, and that, oh my god, you know, this and that. And so this is where it becomes especially creepy, in my opinion, right? And it makes me really wonder, like, what else is Shannon doing behind closed doors, right? Like, what exactly are they trying to do? Because it seems like they are so obsessed with this 13-year-old. I wonder what links they would go to try and get back into contact with them, if they are still back into contact with them, you know. Like, we wouldn't know for sure 100%, and that's very unfortunate, as we've seen before. And there's also no way of telling, like, is Shannon stalking this 13-year-old or whatnot? And again, this is just like some of my thoughts that are running through my mind. Nothing that's true or anything like that, but it really does make you think with how obsessive they're being. And it gets more uncomfortable the deeper you definitely go into the document too, because you start seeing where Shannon's like saying that the minor was naughty and, you know, stuff like that, and saying how they love them and this and that, and, you know, all this very stuff that you just don't say to a 13-year-old. Not like that. See, this is the problem, y'all. This is the problem. I'm not too sure why people are thinking that like this is okay. Like it blows my mind. It blows my mind to this day just to see how people react. And it's very weird because people like Shannon seem to put on this like theater act, if that makes sense, to dramatize everything in their life. And so if you look at like how they talk to them like near the end of the breakup and stuff like that, you'll see that Shannon starts to get really desperate about things. The minor actually confronts Shannon and is like, look, I don't think this is gonna work, it's not good. You know, the minor was actually being more rational than a freaking adult in the situation, and Shannon was like, don't leave me, and that's where you really start to see the cracks in Shannon of being this obsessive manipulator. And then later down the line, you even see that Shannon is like trying to get back into his friend group, because the friend group was obviously like, oh hell no, you're not going to get back in here with you doing all this with multiple different minors. And that's something I also want to emphasize too. This was multiple minors. I mean, they didn't date multiple minors apparently, but they were still sexual with multiple minors too. And this is also the weird part too, because they'll people like Shannon will admit like, oh well, I know it was wrong, but you should still forgive me anyways. Like, I admitted it was wrong. Like, what more do you want from me? You know, it comes off very unsympathetic, unapologetic. And that also brings me up to the next point of, like, how they acted after the breakup. So I'm going to show y'all a quick little video that was in the document here of what they did after the breakup. And I just want y'all to watch it real quick before I say anything else. And so you can see how weird that video is, right? It really, I think, shines the light on how Shannon views this minor. Very obsessively, very much in a way like manipulative, you know, like, hey, I can't live without you. Oh, I'm hurt because of what you did to me. You know, stuff like that, stuff that you shouldn't be telling a minor. You shouldn't be manipulating a minor like that to make them feel sorry for you. That's because you know a minor will. Minors are very easy to unfortunately take advantage of, and the moment you start saying, hey, you did wrong by me, especially from a person who, you know, they looked up to, of course they're going to defend them. Of course, we've seen this before, right? So it's very unfortunate, you know, it's very unfortunate. And I do also want to point out the new information that I did unfortunately get. Now, I'm not going to be mentioning who this person is because, again, privacy's sake. This is what was the breaking point for me to make this video, because this next person I actually did know. I know who they are, and I feel extremely bad for them because they were put into a very awkward, nasty situation. And again, I'm not going to be mentioning who they are, but as y'all know, through the Kodomodachi situation, people have been coming to me about multiple different things, about multiple different people. But Shannon was probably the biggest fender. And when I found about this in particular, I was truly disgusted, because the third person that people aren't talking about who they mess with is a 15-year-old. And obviously I'm not going to be saying their name. But this 15-year-old, I actually did know from the past incident that happened with Kodomodachi. So I knew of them, and I felt bad that they had to go through that whole ordeal over there. They weren't directly affected by it, but they were still affected by it in a way. But in this case, they were actually directly affected by it, because I'm going to put up a screenshot here. It shows that Shannon was wanting to make an NSFW, you know, fan art of this person's OC, like their original character. And this is I don't know how to say this, because I don't want to say I'm willing to give people the benefit of a doubt for one person, because you should never just do something with one minor. But I guess what I will say is, with Shannon, many people thought it might have just been one person that they were dealing with this entire time. So it makes the situation not seem as bad, because it doesn't make them seem like a total pedophile. But when you start throwing in multiple minors, the one that they send the NSFW to, the 12-year-old, and then the 15-year-old that they were trying to like make you know, weird art out of, it really does start to bring stuff to light, right? And again, I mean, it's a very weird situation overall. It's a nasty situation overall, and it's something that I definitely don't like, right? Shannon should have known better. They are the older party here. This is why I say that on YouTube, you have to be responsible for what you do, right? Whenever you make a new YouTube account, you're always going to have to like monitor what's going on. You have to be very aware of people who are younger than you. And you have to just be, you know, a decent person enough to not want to send weird crap to minors, or not want to do weird crap with minors, right? So the reason why I want to talk about this with Shannon is because, like I said, they've done things that I feel like were worse than Kodomodachi. It's something I needed to talk about, and it's something that I'm in. So that's pretty much what I have for y'all now. If you want to read more about this document, you for sure can. I'm going to leave a link in the description about it. There is some more information that you can kind of come over, but this was the main like gist of it. This was basically everything that was going on. So if you have to walk out with something, just know that Shannon was having a relationship with a 13-year-old and being sexually explicit with them. They sent pornography to a 12-year-old, and then they were trying to make NSFW art, which is like not safe for work if you didn't know, for someone who is a 15-year-old with their OC, their original character. So those are just the 3 incidents that we do know. I don't know what Shannon has done outside of this, because, you know, I will say that with the Kodomodachi situation, I knew at that point, right? I'm not saying that I don't know if Kodo's done something outside of that, but I knew Kodo, it was just with this one minor, right? It was just with this one minor we were having trouble with. So at that point, that's where I was really getting to like, okay, that's why you need to stay specifically away from them. But with Shannon, this is multiple cases, so it makes me very much question, like, what else has Shannon done? Has Shannon done other things outside of our knowledge? Has Shannon, you know, contacted any other minors and told them stuff like this? I mean, that's where I'm really getting at, and that's why I really wanted to make this video, because I wanted to spread awareness about this, and I wanted y'all to know that Shannon, from what I can tell, is not a good person, unfortunately. And I don't like making videos like this. I don't like making call-out videos like this, but I really also wanted to make sure that people understood I had no relationship with this Shannon character. And so I hope y'all understood where I was coming from. Again, I do not like making these rant videos. I don't. But I also want to be informative. I also want y'all to know where I'm coming from, where I'm in all this, because if I'm in the freaking document, I need to say something right. You know, I just can't be a radio silent and then expect like, okay, everything's good in La La Land. You know, voice that gross there. But anyways, for real though, this has just been an awful situation, and unfortunately, I know that a lot of people are losing, you know, trust in the Friday Night Funkin community, and understandably so with how people are acting nowadays. But what I will say is, guys, remember what I said in the beginning of the video. Remember the good parts of it. So far from what we know, there are just a few people who are like this, and it's because we're in a very big, huge community. So while it is very unfortunate, remember the good people that you've met. Remember the good side of the community. Let us try to rebuild what has been broken, right? I mean, obviously with this incident, it's gross, and I don't know where you can go from there. Shannon, I really don't. At this point, I'll give you similar advice to what I told Kodo. You need to drop all contact with minors. You need to, honestly, at this point, you probably do need to get off the internet. Even more so than what Kodo needs to do. Because with you, I just don't know if you're still talking with minors in Discord behind other people's backs, or what you're doing out there, you know. So for the safety of minors, and even for your own safety, which not a lot of people are going to tell you this, but even for your own safety, you need to get off the internet, because at this point you're going to be very much harassed. So all I can tell you, Shannon, is you need to get therapy, bro. You need to understand that, you know, doing that stuff with people that young especially is not healthy. It is not correct. You need to find people today around your age. You need to not be obsessive with minors. You need to not send pornography to them. You need to not, you know, offer to make NSFW art for them. All of that is just not good. And a lot of people, I've also heard, will make the argument of, well, sometimes these minors come up to them and ask them for, you know. But at that point, you still have to be the responsible adult. No matter what the kid says, no matter what the minor says, you tell them, no, that's not right, let's move on. You know, you don't entertain the idea. You don't say, well, you know, okay, sure, because you asked, but just remember you asked, and it wasn't me, like, to try and shift blame. You are the older party, you are the more responsible party, and you need to remember that, okay? At this point, guys, I don't know anymore, though, unfortunately. A lot of this has just been, it's been gross, and I just don't know where to go from here. with a lot of this situation. So if y'all have any questions or comments or concerns, please leave them in the comments section down below, and we'll talk more about this. But I think that's all I have, and I don't want to make this video too big. So with that said, bye guys. Thank y'all so much for watching, and peace out.